and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, this is iRadio 1 o'clock news. First, here are the headlines. The UN Refugee Agency UNHCR has revealed that more than 100 million people in the world are displaced either within their country or across the borders as refugees. A regional environmental expert has cautioned the government against the resumption of Jonglei Canal project, citing climate-related impact. And authorities in Capoeira East County of Eastern Equatorial State have confirmed the homecoming of an 8-year-old boy who was abducted by suspected Turkana herdsmen last week. These stories are now coming to you in this news bulletin. With me, Helen Samuel. Now the news in detail. The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, has revealed that more than 100 million people in the world are displaced either within their country or across the borders as refugees. The country director, Arafat Jamal, has disclosed that the 100 people, an equivalent of 1% of the world population, are not at home due to violence or persecution. Speaking during the commemoration of the World Refugee Day yesterday, Jamal terms the statistics as worrying.
20th of June is the day that we commemorate and acknowledge the achievements of refugees throughout the globe. It's a day that we remember them and that we also thank those countries and people that host refugees globally. It's significant in a number of ways. One is that in addition to this being World Refugee Day, we have also received the very worrying statistic that 100 million people in the world today are forcibly displaced, either within their country or as refugees. That means that 1%.
The UN official also acknowledged that despite the years of conflict and poverty, South Sudan has become an exemplary refugee hosting country. UNHCR serves as the guardian of the 1951 UN Convention on Refugees and the 1967 Protocol, which calls for states to ensure that the rights of refugees are respected and protected. The refugee conventions are the key legal documents that form the basis of the UNHCR work. The 149 countries which are a party to the UN conventions are indebted to safeguard and protect the rights of refugees. A Sudanese representative to the East Africa Meteorological Society has cautioned the government against digging the Jonglei Canal, citing its climate change impact. Dr. Hassan Mohammed believes excavation of the canal may affect the biodiversity in the area and the neighboring Blue Nile in Sudan. Doru Penina files this report.
The Jonglei Canal is a project designed to divert excess water from the vast wetlands of Upper Nile downstream to Sudan and Egypt. The project started during the colonial period in 1954, a year before Sudan gained its independence. However, it was halted in the 19th, following a series of riots by students and the formation of SPLM-A in 1984. Which culminated into the Second Sudanese Civil War. Meanwhile, in February this year, the Vice President for Infrastructure Cluster called for the resumption of Jonglei Canal excavation to prevent flood disaster in Jonglei and Unity states. According to Vice President Taban Dengai, the devastating floods in areas of Bentiu, Fangak, and Bor towns are a result of high volume of water from Lake Victoria. He said the displacement caused by flooding could be avoided by opening the waterways and the digging of Jonglei Canal. However, Dr. Hassan Mohamud, who represents the East African Meteorological Society, has expressed fears the canal would lead to the dissipation of moisture in the wetland. Speaking to iRadio from the Sudanese capital Khartoum yesterday, he appealed to the government of South Sudan to preserve the environment in the Sud regions.
We have to talk about the Jonglei Canal. I suggest we have to keep these swamps, and if there are any negative impacts, we have to tackle them, but we have to keep that environment with its diversity and with its supply of moisture to the local rains. It shouldn't be drained. That is my opinion, and I think also it is an internationally accepted as an international park or reserve for this biodiversity for animals or plant species and others.
Dr. Mohamud, who is also the president of Sudanese Meteorological Society with 40 years experience in meteorology, went on to narrate the history and importance of the Jonglei Canal. He described it as rich area of biodiversity.
This is a very important waterway which was planned to route the water from the swamps in the Sud area into the White Nile. But also, this Sud area is a very important environmental area, and there are different types of species living there, from big animals to reptiles to insects and trees and plants. So this is a very rich area of biodiversity. We have to adjust our activities, the amount of evaporation from this area, because it is nearly 600 kilometers long and about 200 or 300 kilometers wide. It provides a lot of moisture, and this moisture during the rainy season comes back as rain, and most of this water vapor comes back downstream in the northeastern part of the swamps.
Dr. Hassan added that if the canal swamps are drained, it will affect some parts of the neighboring Sudan.
The area of the Mazin, for example, the Blue Nile, has a very large percentage of rainfall recycling. We call it recycling, that the local evaporation contributes to the local rain. If these swamps of South Sudan are drained and no longer water vapor are provided from that place, the amount of rain in the Mazin or Blue Nile area will diminish, and that will affect a very important fertile area for northern Sudan and also for southern Sudan, which is very adjacent to that place where a lot of cultivation of sorghum or sesame or sunflower are being cultivated on those areas.
Experts have since warned of catastrophic environmental and social issues, including the collapse of fisheries, drying of grazing lands, a drop in groundwater levels, and a reduction of rainfall in the region. Reporting for iRadio, I am Doro Penina.
Authorities in Kapweta, East County of Eastern Equatoria State, have confirmed the homecoming of an 8-year-old boy who was abducted by the suspected Turkana herdsmen last week. On June 15th, herdsmen reportedly stormed Logua village in Kapweta East and abducted 2 children aged 8 and 9 from the area. Shortly after the incident, the attackers freed the 9-year-old and took along the younger one. Kapweta East County Commissioner Abdallah Lokeno said the armed attackers also raided 30 herds of cattle. Lokena confirms that the young boy was recovered by Kenyan military at Nadapal and handed over to South Sudanese authorities at the border.
لا رجعوا يوم السبت هذا هو في قرية هنا ودي لأقل بتوع والله دقوا بعدين هو جان رجعوا هناك ما أكل أكل ساكت ما ودي والله يا ناينا كلمنا مع ناس ده إنه ناينا بشر من الناس ويتوا ناس إنت ما تشيل جنة تزل حاجة اسمه شال ريال ريال ده جاجة بطال وجاجة بطال مرة واحدة كله أنا كلمت مع تونا لازم كلام ده يخليه شو كلام ده.
The commissioner said the abductors assaulted the hostage and denied food for an unspecified number of days. Commissioner Loken urges the herdsmen from the ethnic Turkana community to desist from child abduction and embrace peace with their neighbors. iRadio could not reach the Kenyan authorities for comment. This news is coming to you from iRadio. The East African heads of states have committed to finding a swift and lasting solution to the conflict in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. The regional leaders made the promise during the third Heads of State Summit on the Democratic Republic of Congo in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, yesterday. Kafuki Jada has more in this brief report.
The summit was attended by Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, Paul Kagame, President of Rwanda, Salva Kiir Mayardit of South Sudan, Felix Antoine Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Evariste, President of Burundi. The heads of state deliberated on the security situation in the eastern DRC and the measures to promote peace, stability, and development in the country and the greater East African region. They reiterated commitment to finding a lasting solution to the conflict in the North and South Kivu, as well as Ituri provinces. In the recent weeks, fierce fighting between the government and M23 rebel group has resumed in the eastern DRC, displacing thousands into Uganda and Rwanda. The summit directed that the immediate ceasefire be enforced and cessations of hostilities should commence immediately, including withdrawal of armed actors from the recent taken positions. The regional leaders also appealed for a cessation of offensive language, hate speech, threats of genocide, and other politically inciting language. The conclave also suggested that the people of DRC must be encouraged to work together to stabilize the eastern side of the country. In another solution, the heads of state instructed that the regional forces should be incorporated with the military and administrative forces of the DRC to stabilize and secure the peace. The conclave received a written briefing on the political track of the Nairobi process, which detailed actions and activities that have been undertaken since the last convening of the second conclave. The head of state of the United Republic of Tanzania was represented by Ambassador John Stephen, High Commissioner of Tanzania to Kenya. At the closure of the conclave, President Salva Kiir Mayardit took the opportunity to brief the meeting on the most important recent developments in the political process in South Sudan. Reporting for iRadio, Kafuki Jada.
And lastly, before the international news, members of the public who took their first dose of cholera vaccine in Juba are encouraged to continue with the second dose. The vaccination campaign commenced more than a week ago. Christine Juma, a communication consultant at the Central Equatorial State Ministry of Health, says the doses are taken within a period of 1 to 2 weeks. She was speaking to iRadio after the launch of the campaign this week.
عنده 2 جرعة. الجرعة الأول اللي حاسة الناس شغالين فيه. This is the first round. والراوند الثاني هيكون maybe from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, let me say. في فترة ده ممكن هيجي الراوند الثاني. عشان كده نحن بنناشد الناس اللي أخذوا حصة oral cholera vaccine ده يحتفظوا بالكروت بتاعهم. لأنه في مكان هناك لدوز 1 and second dose, the first and the second dose. يعني أنت لو أخذت الجرعة الأول الجرعة الثاني بعدين ما هيدوك كريت ثاني لسه هتجيب نفس الكريت بتاعك ده ويكتبوا فيه هناك إن أنت أخذت الجرعة الثانية. فنحن بنناشد الناس البرا اللي بياخدوا يحتفظوا بالكروت بتاعهم.
The vaccines provide individuals with a maximum 3 years protection against the cholera disease. Those who took their first dose are also asked to keep their registration cards until the second dose of the vaccine. The vaccine is administered to anyone who is 1 year and above, including pregnant women and lactating mothers. The state health officials say the ongoing oral vaccination campaign will run for 6 days. They are appealing to residents of Juba and Central Equatoria in general to visit the nearest vaccination post or health center to get the jab. You are listening to iRadio News, and now to the international news brought to you by MTN.
Freedom is everyone's desire. Freedom is what makes you and me happy. Freedom is called Hurea in my country. My telecom network has chosen to give me freedom. MTN is my network. I have the freedom. I choose affordable and reliable. Hurea Bundles is my way. MTN introduces to you Hurea Bundles, giving you the freedom to call across all networks with the same bundles. Subscribe by dialing *100 *3 *4 hash and get 15 minutes for only 100 SSB and 30 minutes for 150 SSB, valid for 1 day. Hurea, pure freedom. MTN, everywhere you go.
And now Lo Nelson is here with the stories from the international arena. Good afternoon, Nelson.
Thanks. On the international and regional stories, Kenya's top public hospital says there has been an increase in the number of people making inquiries and offering to sell their kidneys. In a Facebook post, Kenyatta National Hospital said, "How much for my kidney?" was the most asked question through the inbox on their page. The hospital, however, advised that though body organs could be donated to needy cases, they could not be sold. Please note that the organ sale is strictly prohibited and illegal. You can only donate out of free will, it said. Elsewhere, Tunisian coast guards say they have retrieved the bodies of 4 migrants after their boat sank off the port city of Sfax. In recent months, dozens of migrants have drawn east. Increasing numbers have attempted to reach Europe in small boats from Tunisia and Libya. Many are fleeing conflict and poverty in Africa and the Middle East. Finally, the Russian editor-in-chief of the independent newspaper, Novaya Gazeta, has auctioned off his Nobel Peace Prize model for 84 million. Dmitry Muratov said all the money from the sale will go to help refugees from the war in Ukraine. Muratov was co-awarded the Peace Prize in 2021 for defending freedom of expression in Russia. Novaya Gazeta suspended its operation in March shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Well, that is all what is making headlines in the region and international. Back to you in the studio, reporting for iRadio. I am Lo Nelson.
Thank you, Lo, for the roundup of stories from the international arena. And now to the sports desk. Here is Moyo Jacob.
Thank you. And to start with, Manchester United hope to persuade Denmark midfielder Christian Eriksen to join them before the new season. It was thought the 30-year-old would prefer to remain in London after making a successful comeback with Brentford in the second half of last season. The Bees hoped Eriksen would stay on, while it was thought Tottenham Hotspurs were also keen to resign him. However, a deal has not been agreed with either club, giving United the chance to make an offer for the free agent. The former Manchester United winger, 48, stepped away from his role in November 2020 after being arrested. Giggs was later charged with using controlling behavior and assaulting his ex-girlfriend, charges he has denied. Robert Page took over as interim Wales boss in Giggs' absence, leading them to a first World Cup final since 1958. In a statement, Giggs said, and I quote, "After much consideration, I am standing down from my position as manager of the Wales men's national team with immediate effect," end quote. And finally, Britain's Andy Murray faces a race against time to play Wimbledon because of the abdominal injury that forced him out of Queen's last week. The two-time Wimbledon champion said there had been positives and negatives during practice this week. The Grand Slam event starts at the All England Club next Monday, and Murray, who won in 2013 and 2016, says he is still unable to hit certain shots. The injury is healing but still not perfect, the 35-year-old Scot said. On his hopes at Wimbledon, he added, and I quote, "My goal is to try to get to the start line in a good place physically and give myself the best chance to do well," end quote. Murray picked up the injury in the staggered final on 12 June and as a result withdrew from Queen's a day later. The former world number one had a scan in London and decided to skip the clean championships after it revealed the level of the damage. End of iRadio Sports News, and back to you, my colleague in the studio.
You are listening to iRadio afternoon news. And to end this bulletin, here are the headlines once again. The UN Refugee Agency UNHCR has revealed that more than 100 million people in the world are displaced either within their country or across the borders as refugees. A regional environmental expert has cautioned the government against the resumption of Jonglei Canal project, citing climate-related impact. And authorities in Kapweta East County of Eastern Equatoria State have confirmed the homecoming of an 8-year-old boy who was abducted by suspected Turkana herdsmen last week. And that's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. You can get these stories and updates by subscribing to iRadio News Alerts on your MTN South Sudan number. Call 700 or dial star 700 hash and follow the instructions. If there is a story or an event you'd like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287 870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on Twitter at iRadio Juba. Like our Facebook page, iRadio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 1:30. I'm Helen Samuel. Thank you for listening.